This is the 2016 boxing review.
The year-end review, basically. 2016 wasn't an epic year for boxing, but we had some great fights in 2016. I don't know what a lot of people minds went with 2016, but there's a lot of great things that came out of this year. We saw Errol Spence start to win over a lot of fans. As people's like, man, we need to see more of Errol Spence. You know, we saw Carl Frampton, who is my fighter of 2016, definitely rise to the top. We saw my fight of the year, which was Carl Frampton, Leo Santa Cruz. I thought that fight was amazing. I liked Keith Thurman versus Sean Porter fight. I thought that was great. Andre Ward, Kovalev. Don't forget Easter Jr. versus Comney. I think that was a underrated fight, and then it was on PBC. Abner Mares, Leo Santa Cruz was good, and of course, Abner Mares versus Jesus Quasar or Celiar, whatever you want to pronounce his name. That's the way it is. It was a lot of great fights that was in between. We saw Kama guy from Japan, my guy, come back. Camera guy, as I like to call him. So, yeah, the trash man's coming right now. But I missed out on a lot of the show last week, but I'm going to put it in the description box so you can hear it. I'm going to give you a little sample of it on this video, but last week's show was epic. I didn't listen to it at least 2 times already when I'm driving in the cars, blasting, and I got the talk radio going, and this one dude's just going off. And he's outstanding every time he calls into the show. But, yeah, this Wednesday night is going to go down too. But knockout of the year, I definitely got Joe Smith Jr. over Bernard Hopkins, flushing him down the toilet out of the ring. That was the epic end of 2016. And it put a big stamp on the end of Bernard Hopkins' career. That is the way I wanted Bernard Hopkins to go out. Just vanish. That's it. That is perfect ending. And that's another person who had an outstanding year because he beat a guy that a lot of people thought was going to be the baddest guy in the division. And once he knocked him out in the first round, they're like, wow, that was unbelievable. And, you know, he was buzzed himself. You know, both of those guys could crack. So I would like to see more of those two in the ring again. And oh my goodness, it's so much to try to recap every event, everything. Even Triple G versus Gennady Golovkin was exciting. That was probably the most excitement I had all year going into the fight. Manny Pacquiao, Jesse Vargas was a good fight. It wasn't a boring fight at all. Jesse Vargas came to fight Manny Pacquiao. He hurt Manny Pacquiao in the fight, numerous of times. But you guys didn't really understand how badly Manny was hurt for a while. I mean, he did his thing to win the fight, but, you know, you got Terrence Crawford had a great year. He was up for Fight of the Year. And he just totally destroyed and beat the best guy at 135. So, you know, what's next for Terrence Crawford? He proved he's the best there. You know, 140 is his. You know, I mean, what more can he do? He dominated 135, went to 140. Dominated there. Welterweight got to be the next ticket. I mean, that's where the big money's at, 147. But is Crawford ready for 147? I think he is. I think he's filled out enough at 140. But I think it's set up now where 2017 is going to be an epic year, because now we got a lot of fighters that's coming out. A lot of people still dealing with contracts and red tape and promoters trying to get themselves in position. Now that Richard Schaefer has himself in position now, I think we can, and Top Rank seems to be open with working with Al Heyman. We could get a lot of things done now. And we got to get Canelo Alvarez in a real fight, and that's what I think crippled 2016 a little bit with the Canelo Khan, even Triple G versus Kell Brook was like, okay, that's a middleweight versus a welterweight. It brought a lot of excitement, but, didn't really do what we thought it was going to do. Then we had, Anthony Joshua in these little wash-up fights. It kept him busy. It's like, okay, all right, we got all these kept busy fights, but now he's actually going to fight Klitschko and get him out of the way, hopefully, so he can go ahead and do whatever it is he's going to do, retire and be gone from the sport. So now with that happening, if Tyson Fury come back, we'll actually have some heavyweights in position to fight. Mm-hmm. We got David Haye getting ready to fight light heavyweight. David Haye's going to come back and hopefully, gosh, how can I forget this guy's name already? Is it that early in the morning? But anyway, David Haye's going to fight a loudmouth. Hopefully the loudmouth knocks him out. But I'm ready for David Haye to get out of the ring. But enough of me talking. I've already gave up fighters to look for, to be excited to see next year. Mikey Garcia has the toughest fight of his life coming up at 140 pounds. That Aussie is going to really put it on him. Day one is no joke, and he might just knock Mikey out cold. So definitely pay attention to that. And don't forget, you got Danny Garcia versus Keith Thurman. We talked about last year that's the fight they're working on getting done. Andre Berto's finna fight Chris Algieri. And, a lot of people think Algieri doesn't have the skills to beat Andre Berto. Don't be surprised. Berto has the power, but Chris Algieri, he's got some speed and agility, and let's see what happens. He's still working with John David Jackson, so we'll see where that takes us. And I'm really good. I'm glad whenever we have a year that was kind of like, no real big fights. There was the post-Mayweather era, when Mayweather was out of it for a while. We saw some good knockouts, but we're tired of showcase fights. We saw the Danny Garcia last showcase fights, but now we got to get to the meat of it. But I'm going to let you hear a sample of the show with Chris, because I didn't get on it, so this is the first time you heard me talk about it. But this is what the guys who were on the show was talking about, and I'm going to play you a sample, and then click the link in the description box and listen to the show in its entirety. If you love boxing like we do, I'm out. I love rope-a-dope boxing, and enjoy the podcast too, and subscribe to the podcast so when it come on every Wednesday or whatever, and you can call or just listen to the show. That's another thing. You can just listen to the show right from the internet, so. Or you can listen to it on your phone. You can call and listen to it on the phone. And if you want to talk or make a statement, you just press 1 and get in the caller section, and Chris will find you. That's one thing I like about the show. It's really fan friendly. They don't like to dictate. It's like an open forum, for people to come in and who love boxing and have an opinion and want to be heard and want to talk about it. So, that's how you really supposed to have a show. Hopefully everybody had a safe new year. Me, I was out there, I was sharp. You saw me in my suit. Brooks Brothers. Brothers Brooks. Nah. A lot of y'all probably didn't see that film. But I did. Right now, I'm killing time because I'm trying to actually get the thing to actually load up. So you guys can hear the sample of the show. But while that's happening, let me see what other fights we could look forward to this year. Because Errol Spence, Kell Brook, I think is definitely got to happen this year. I think there's no more posting it off or pushing it off. We got to have that fight take off in 2017. Or something's got to happen with the welterweight title at IBF. But if Kell Brook's going to come back, I think if he's going to stay at welterweight, you got to fight Errol Spence. And Timothy Bradley, he's got to decide, what are you going to do? You going to go to 154 or you going to stay at 147? What are you planning on doing?
Back fighter of the year this year. It is a good year for that anyway. But as far as winners and losers, I'll start on the positive note, which sometimes it's hard to do in boxing, right? Don't get me wrong, boxing was frustrating this year. That's what made it a bad year. The big names didn't fight each other per se, but some other, lower level, trying to become more known names, they fought each other. And it was a big deal because people were pumped about it, like Thurman and Porter, Santa Cruz and Frampton, Kovalev Ward, Crawford Postal. We did get some of these matchups. And if you're more of an avid boxing fan and a hardcore fan, you know that we're getting fights from the UK, from Japan. I mean, by the way, this weekend, and I don't know how long this has been a tradition, but I know the last handful of years, a lot of times on New Year's Eve and on New Year's Day, sometimes it's a double header of cards, but the Japanese, they always put on solid cards in and around New Year's, whether it's New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. So look out for that. More than likely, we'll be off next week and then come back ready with should be a lot of news, but of course that James DeGale and Badu Jack fight will really start out January with a bang. So more than likely, unless something out of Japan, one of those fights, which there's a lot of them, turn into like a fight of the year, it'll be hard not to want to talk about that, right? But more than likely, we're going to take next week off. I only usually take 1 or 2 tops weeks off, usually just 1. So this is probably going to be that one because in the States here and even the UK, boxing kind of shuts down. But I don't know, man. Those Japanese fights, some of those really look good on paper, and we might get a fight of the year candidate. I remember boxing scene waited for their fighter of the year last year, fight of the year, I should say. And they, I think their fight of the year actually, was it fighter of the year or fight of the year that came right at the buzzer because of that Japanese card. But anyway, let's start with the winners, right? So obviously Eddie Hearn in the UK, and to a lesser extent Frank Warren, because he did do he did expand, which will help expose boxing even more. That Box Nation subscriber base channel has grown, not tremendously, but it's successful to an extent. I think it's cool that he tried to do that. But he did a nice little deal as well with a bigger outlet than he had been on. But Eddie Hearn and the UK boxing scene, I mean, it just keeps winning right now. Now, sure, Anthony Joshua stands out. Tony Bellew and Hay, big fight coming up, which will do great numbers. Of course, the Joshua fight within, 2-3 days, they sold 50,000 tickets. Mid-January, they got another ring coming out. I guess he's got 80,000 tickets, and if he sells those, he gets to bump it up to 10 more thousand. So he's gonna try to get to 90,000. That's gonna be huge. Sure, Anthony Joshua hasn't, he's still young in his career, hasn't faced the top level just yet. He's about to, even though I'm more of a faded guy. But still, this is a big, big fight for him. So that, I mean, it's hard because sometimes Eddie Hearn puts his pay-per-view card on, and you look at the pay-per-view and you're watching it, and you're like, man, even though we don't have to pay for the pay-per-view over here, it's like some of it's like kind of overhyped, and then it's gonna be a quick knockout by Joshua. But other times, you have some really solid fights on it. Sora White was a big fight on the last card for Molina. So, sure, you know, some of these are stay busy fights that don't mean a thing, but every promoter's doing that. You know what I mean? And people are still, no matter who Joshua fights, he's going to sell out quick. And that's just how it goes. Eddie Hearn is another winner in a lot of his, you know, the people he represents, obviously, right? Speaking of winner, I thought Gennady Golovkin was a winner this year. Yes, his first fight sucked, and I really hope, I know they want to unify, and I've said this a couple times over, you know, last chunk of like a year and a half or something. I know they want to unify the division, but if there's another mandatory that's garbage, I mean, maybe you fight Jacobs and then Canelo, let's say, does give you that fight. Okay, then after that, take a stay busy fight. That'd be different, but I really hope we don't get a Dominic Wade. And the sanctioning belts love that stuff because they know their fighter's not going to lose, that they got holding the belt, and they can just pick up a sanctioning fee.
Well, something happened. Maybe it's just wind and this weather breaking up every day. Let's you get an example or a sample rather of the show. So I just stop it here and just put the link in the description box and let y'all go at it. Alright, we'll just do that. Well, it's your boy Carcino. I'm out. Don't forget to subscribe and go to the description box and finish watching the rest of the show. I'm done.